let's start. This is an 800 by 800 canvas. First thing I'm going to do is set the canvas background to black. On the first layer, using a monoline brush set to 50%, opacity 100%, and using an orange color like this, I'm going to draw a perfect circle. I do this by stopping and holding and then pressing with a finger. I'm going to now move that to the center. Now I'm going to create a new layer, and selecting a slightly darker orange, I'm going to use the same brush size and the same brush and create a perfect circle in the center like this, holding and pressing with the finger. Now I'm going to make sure that this one is in the middle. Next, for each of these rings, I'm going to activate alpha lock. Now I'm going to use a soft brush, and using my different shades of orange, I'm going to add gradients of color like this. I'll use a 5% brush and I will start to add areas where the light is shining on the object. Perhaps you can use some opacity here. Let's use 60%. Now I'll use a darker orange. Once you have these gradients of color, we can do something I like to do is use a smudge tool using stucco brush, which is inside painting. Let's use a size 5% and start to smudge some of the color in. It's very subtle, but adding this texture makes it look a little more realistic. Otherwise you would have a perfectly smooth surface, and in reality you don't really have that. So be quite subtle here, be careful, and do that for both rings. So once you've done that, create a new layer and hide the previous two. Now we're going to create the diamond. Let's activate drawing assist. I'm going to use monoline brush set to 1%. We're going to use different shades of grey. So let's start with the first facet. I'm holding the finger to ensure I have a perfect line. Start with something like this. You can fill that. We're going to repeat that multiple times to create the shape of the diamond. So for the next facet, we create a new layer and then repeat that until you have a diamond shape. So we now have 8 facets. However, we only have 5 layers. 3 of these layers have 2 facets. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select alpha lock for each of these layers. So before I start the next step, I'm not entirely happy with the shape of the diamond. It's a little too long. So I'm going to select all facet layers, select cursor and distort, and bring the shape into where I want it to be, something around here. So now we have 8 facets, but we have each facet filled with a flat color. We don't want that. We're going to add a gradient to each facet. So we do that. First thing to do is by disactivating drawing guide and drawing assist from each layer, and then for that facet select the base color, and then using a soft brush, it's a good idea to use some opacity here, just create a variance in color, something like this. I'll make it a little bit more dramatic so you can see, something like this, and do that for each facet. Be careful with the layer with two facets. What you will need to do is isolate one at a time using the freehand selection. You can also add some bands of blue, okay, but you have to be very careful here and use very small amount of opacity. Using the soft brush and the selection tool, we can do something like this, very subtle. Do that for each facet. Now I'm going to add a gleam of white light to each corner of the facet. Remember, you will need to have alpha lock activated. I'm going to use a technical pen set to 5%, and let's take one for example to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to add something like this, and I'm going to do that all around. You can now merge all of these layers together, and then if we deselect alpha lock and select luminance and flare, we can add some shine like this. And then one final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to adjustments and use bloom approximately 2%. This is what we have now. We have the diamond and the ring. I've changed the size and position so they are in the center. Now we need something to hold the diamond in place. So let's create a new layer, and we'll do that on top of the diamond. So the diamond is now at the bottom, the two rings are at the top, and we've created a new layer above the diamond. So activate drawing assist on your new layer. We're going to use a technical pen. We can use one of the flat colors of orange, and then start to add the piece which holds the diamond to the ring. Very useful having the symmetry here. And then add the other side. This should be symmetrical, so using the drawing guide really helps. You can add a section at the bottom, something like this. Make sure that is all filled in. So that's now a flat color. I'm going to repeat the same thing I did with the rings and add gradients of different colors of orange. So one last touch you can do once you've done that, you can now bring those rings together, overlay layer, and really brighten that orange effect. So use a soft brush, make it quite large, use clipping mask, and then add some brighter areas of orange, really make it nice and shiny. You can do that for the other one as well. So there you have it, a golden wedding ring.